What's up, guys? Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about dermestid beetle colonies and how they function to clean your skeletons, skulls, fish for a nice looking European mount. We're going to start off with how you should provide your skulls to the taxidermist, or if you're going to do it yourself, where you should start off to get the best end result. We're going to cover how to actually set up your dermestid beetle colony. A good friend of mine, Steven, has built his own setup, and he's going to walk us through it. And then we're going to cover at the end what you should do to get that nice white finish if you're doing it yourself, or if your taxidermist only provides like the Beetles. So stick with us. I think it's going to be a good one. I hope you like it. Alright guys, I'm out here today with my good buddy Steven. We're going to talk about dermestid beetles. The first thing is, what is a dermestid beetle? It's a beetle that's in the Dermestidae family that scavenges on plant and animal matter. Chances are if you go out in the woods, you flip over a log or you find a dead animal, the beetle is already in there. But these are ones that you can specifically purchase online. They're made for what we're going to talk about today. My first question always is, why in the heck did you want to start a beetle colony?
That's a real good question, because when you smell it sometimes I wonder. I tell people I do this, they give me funny looks, but really just because I got a lot of buddies I hunt with, and it gives them an option to have some keepsakes. Like I did one skull for a buddy, and it was his son's first buck that he ever killed. That's so it wasn't big enough to put on a wall mount to spend all that money, but he wanted something cool to do, so it didn't cost him a penny. I just did it for him as a favor, but it's really just a weird hobby, I guess.
Another added benefit is it's guaranteed to improve your relationship with your wife. Am I right there?
Yeah, I hope she doesn't find this video. She knows they're out there, but she doesn't like talking about them.
So how many did you start with originally?
So the first order I got from a guy online was 1,000 Beetles. I'd say right now I'm probably close to 3,000 in there. They repopulate quick. So.
Yeah, and that's something that people don't think about a lot is when you buy beetles, you got to think about you have to grow it. You can't just throw a whole bunch of meat in there right off the bat,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, because the meat will rot, and that's where the smell comes from. They have a interesting smell. You smelled it earlier when I opened the enclosure.
It's kind of earthy, but not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. It's just because you close that lid, you got that lid closed, and you open it and you get a whiff of it. But if you don't have, it's a fine line of eating before the meat is rotting. Yeah. And that's where you got to balance your colony numbers.
That makes sense. So where did you actually get your beetles from?
So I got them from Dermestid Incorporated, and Jay's going to give you the link for that, and a guy named Tim. He was great. He answered all my questions. Ships in the mail. They don't. He holds them at the post office because if it's cold out like it was when I ordered them, you don't want them sitting in your mailbox. Yeah. And so I went to the post office, and they questioned me when the box said live animals, and I just said, don't worry about it.
Chickens in the mail all the time. What's a couple of beetles?
Yep. But now that he'll ship them, you can get everything. I think as low as like a couple hundred to multiple thousands. And really the numbers depend on how quickly you want to start cleaning skulls, or cleaning whatever you're doing. And I started with 1,000 because I wanted to start slow and learn. And they they grew quick.
Yeah.
So,
That's a good thing. Well, I'll tell you what, before we go any further, why don't we go inside and check out your setup?
all right, let's
Do
go.
it.
So this is the enclosure I have is about a 7 or 8 cubic foot chest freezer, just one that I got for free from a buddy. Wasn't working. I cut out all the compressor and all the tubing just for weight, just because I had somewhere else to collect dust. But on the front, you can see I just have a couple trays. The water with ammonia in it, you spray the heads every once in a while, so I just have something easy to grab every once in a while. The clipboard there, I keep track of whose heads I have and what time they go in the enclosure, and what time they come out, just keep track of everything and whose I've got. I took the sheets off. I got the sheets removed from the clipboard just because I keep track of their game tags too from their harvest confirmation number, just because I do have something harvested legally by the state, so within the state, sorry, and just in case game warden ever shows up, says, hey, here you have some deer heads, I can show that they're legal. But the device here on the front is called an Inkbird. The manufacturer is an Inkbird, and it controls the heat and humidity, which are the two critical things to keep the colony healthy. The heat, you want it warm enough because they do work faster and more efficient when it's warmer, but you need to keep it under 80 degrees because if it gets about 80 to 82 degrees, it will, the beetles can't fly. And you don't want to open the enclosure and, a couple beetles fly out, obviously. But you can see right now, it's about 72 degrees and 42% humidity, and that's because there's no skulls in there. Usually humidity is about 50 to 55. That's where I try to keep it. And if the humidity gets up too high, the Inkbird will kick on this computer fan here, which exhausts out my window. And if the heat gets too low, then I've got a heat lamp right here, one of the ceramic bugs. It doesn't have light, so because the beetles do like to work better in the darkness, so I try to keep it as dark in there as possible. And if it's dark in there and I cut the LED light on and I look through this little opening in here, the beetles scurry away real quick, so it's pretty entertaining watching them try to run and hide. Over here, the white PVC is the pickup, because obviously if you're exhausting, then you got to have fresh air coming in, and it's just two little try to get in here, see, just two little fittings in there. And then I just showed you a second ago, just a little window, just so I can pull this off and see what's going on in there. It does have plexiglass on both the inside and the outside, one to keep the beetles in, obviously, but to help with the heat. Then I just have this little cover on there to just help, another thing to help keep heat in. But then when you open it up, take this off, see plexiglass. Here's the ceramic bulb that the Inkbird will cut on, so it heats up in there but doesn't emit any light. Then the screen from the inside, the viewing window. Then you have a screen, real fine mesh, to make sure that if any bugs do fly, they're not going to come up out there. And I do have an LED strip light just to keep some light going in here. It's called a Waze security camera, so I can actually live stream what's going on in here with the beetles. Anytime I can pull it up on my phone, no matter where I'm at, and look. And what's nice too is you can see right in between all those baking soda boxes is just a readout, shows me humidity and temperature. But real simple. You can see the readings for the humidity and the temperature probe there. And then the other big thing is these guys can't crawl, but not very well. So you have the tin foil tape that's pretty much a whole diameter around the whole perimeter of the enclosure, and they can't climb up it. It's too slick for the little feet. So, but that's pretty it. Real simple. Just biggest thing is the mesh, airflow, and the heat, and pretty easy.
All right, so now we've seen the setup. We know how it's put together. Something that I didn't think about ahead of time is, you know, you got any advice for like new people? I hear horror stories all the time of people wanting to do this and learn the hard way that there is some rhyme or reason to it, some technique. But you got any advice, mistakes that we can learn from?
Yeah, I would say it's not for everyone, but it's at the same time it works really well. I've got 2 young kids, and doing the whole boiling process. I mean, I don't dislike it, but it manipulates the bones a little bit more than the Beetles, where the Beetles is what you call museum quality. A lot of people refer to it as, and it doesn't soften the bone as much as like maybe boiling or soaking in the cold water maceration process. But it's something where I can take the time to clean the skull, or whoever did it, like yours, you did a great job. I didn't have to do much at all with it. I can take 5 minutes here or there, and then I put in the Beetles and just watch. Yeah. I don't have to do really anything. It's very labor simplified, where if you boil it, pressure wash it, or do maceration, you got pressure wash too, and you don't always get everything out. It's a lot to it, and I don't want to call it lazy, but at the same time, it's quick. It's easy.
You point out an interesting fact. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat, or in this case, a deer.
Yep.
This way is a way that you can enjoy. It is museum quality. When I was going to school at UT, we use this to do some fish vertebrae because it's minimally invasive, like you talked about. If you boil, you'll destroy the bones of fish.
Yep.
But I mean, this deer head. How many days would you say this was in there?
It was in there probably 8 to 9, and they were probably done with it in about 4.
Yeah. Another tip I'll give you is I left this out and my dog got a hold of it. So this is not something that you would think about typically, but if you got a deer head with a little bit of soft tissue, your dog is going to like it. So be wary of that. But I think ultimately, for somebody that wants to, it's kind of like a set it and forget it. To some aspects, once you figure out the moisture and the heat.
And that's what one thing that speaking of the moisture, you got talking about lessons learned. Like I did a lot of research, YouTube, Facebook, reaching out to Tim, who I got the Beetles from through email, and some things work for some people. I tried a way on my very first skull, and people said that they would take it straight from the freezer, still frozen, and put it in there. In that short time that the Beetles would go at it and eat it, it was a quick enough window for it to thaw. And that's not how mine went. It was disgusting. The deer head, like I said before, that you got to get that fine line, the meat started rotting in there. And my garage stunk, and I tell a white lie to my wife that it wasn't the Beetles, and it was something else, but hopefully she doesn't see this video. And so it's what I do now is I put under a fan and outside for about a day and a half, 2 days, and it dries all the moisture out, but it makes kind of jerky-like, and the Beetles will go at it as long as it's not too dry, because they do need, you don't have to give them water like a dog, but they get their water from the meat, and if it's too dry, then they don't have any of the water.
Yeah.
So, but
that's pretty cool.
It was a bad lesson learned.
Learn from Steven.
Yeah. Don't trust me. I still come out in the garage and I worry that I'm going to smell that another day.
Yep.
So
you're relatively new to it, but you're doing a great job. If you were telling somebody where to get some additional resources, like if you got questions, concerns, if you want to watch videos, where would you look?
I started a lot on YouTube before I knew, the who's in the business. There's a lot of people you can get Beetles from across the country.
Yeah.
And this is a worldwide thing. I mean, you have you see people on Facebook asking where to get beetles and if they ship overseas and stuff. And I'm not sure about the ins and outs of that, but Tim that I got them from is on the East Coast, I believe, and you can email him. And he also does. You can go to his site and look. He does instructional videos, and that it's literally a roadmap, and it tells you if you want this is what you do, and down to how to clean them before they go in the beetles and what to do after the beetles. So it's the information's out there. Just take a little time. YouTube. I mean, obviously YouTube is a way to learn just about anything in the world. But you can everything from rebuilding an engine to how to care for
Dermestid
beetles.
Beetles. And I will say, neither one of us are sponsored by anybody. We're just out here having a good time as friends. Want to share some information with you guys. If it's something you're interested in, it's a route you can take. But other than that, that's all I can think of. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I appreciate your time, Stephen.
Yeah, of course.
Stick around because in a couple of months, we'll be out on the boat catching cobia. Maybe we'll throw a cobia skull in there. See what happens. All right, y'all. We're back at my house. Time to do a little degreasing. Just simple Dawn dish soap in a 5-gallon bucket of water. I like to get it on all these outside surfaces really well. Being gentle on the end so you don't break any of those pieces that you preserved. Ooh, you don't want to do that. It's hard to video, guys. Basically, I'm just trying to get a little bit of dish soap in a lot of places. And then we're going to stick it in the water. I'm going to fill it up. With the Dawn dish soap, it don't matter if you get it a little bit on the antlers. I try to keep it just barely above this section of the skull, which you can do with the brick by doing like this. But once it's submerged, leave it in there for about a day. Alright, y'all, we're coming back at you with the next step in the process. We're going to be applying the 40 weight peroxide. It's a cream peroxide is what we use. I'll show you a picture of it down here in the bottom as we get going. But you want to make sure that you are protecting anything that you don't want to get the bleaching agent on. So I went ahead and saran wrap, duct tape, getting kind of really close on the pedestals the best that I can. And then you can buy this stuff in a liquid form and a cream form. I like the cream form just because it's a little bit thicker. I put it inside of a clear container here and I'm going to paint it on. Don't buy an expensive brush. Buy a cheap one that you can throw away because you're going to ruin it. Basically, we're just going to get to applying this stuff on as thick as we can. And then there's a lot of debate on whether sunlight activates the peroxide or heat does. So I like to just make sure I cover both bases. So I'm going to put it outside today and let it sit out in the sun. And then tonight it's going to get cold because it's still getting down in the 30s here. So we'll take it inside. I've got a heated garage. We'll put it in there and make sure we get the heat. Leave it on for 24 hours. Then we'll rinse it off and see how we did. Alright, y'all, we got it outside. We got the peroxide cream on. I like to start with mine upside down for the only reason that I like to keep the color in the teeth. That's a personal preference. Some people like bleaching them white. I like to add that little bit of a pop. So I'll start off because the peroxide is going to foam up a little bit and I don't want it dripping down on the teeth. So now while I got it sitting here, I'm just going to touch up these little places right here. I'll let it sit for half the day and then I'll flip it over. Alright guys, it's been in there for 24 hours. All we got left to do is rinse it off. One thing I didn't mention in the last video, or the last section of the video, was make sure you're wearing hand and eye protection, because this hydrogen peroxide gel, liquid, whatever it is, you don't want to get it on your skin. It will definitely burn you. So make sure you're wearing PPE. We're just going to cut on the water. I like to get in all the cavities the best that I can. Rinse it off. Get as much of this gel off as you can. Trying to get as clean as possible. And you can do this process multiple times. So if you don't get it as white as you want it the first time, you can come back and hit it with the second layer. But you'll notice I like the teeth coloring.